challenge was based on really helping men find their identity in Christ, not in what they do. Like, man, like you don't belong in this low level space of just barely getting by and barely knowing who you are. Every man is called to impact.
So can you hear me sometimes when I'm in my office? Because it's right around the corner from yours. He said, yeah. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to not tell everybody good morning and sing when I don't know how to not be that. That's who I've always been. And he said, who told you have to be anything other than you? He said, I know who I hired. He said, I know who you were. Listen to me what the man said. I'm telling you what the man said. You don't even, I guarantee you, he doesn't remember this. He said, I knew who you were before I hired you.
Wow.
And embrace it. Each of us were born with greatness on the inside of us, but when we ignore it and don't embrace it, then we house it, and then we die. And if you think about it, the wealthiest place in the world, Brian, is the cemetery. It's full of gifts and treasures of unpublished books, gold platinum songs that have never been heard, or groundbreaking cures that haven't been discovered because we were afraid to take a risk. And I think that when you live in mediocrity, part of it is because people are afraid of failure. The people who live extraordinary lives, they don't see failure as failure. They see failure as lessons.
And when we get in the process, we go through the crushing. You know, it's hard. It's like, oh, why is this so hard? Why is this such a challenge? But it's really the point of God breaking all this stuff off of you. He's breaking things that should not be there. It's crushing down, you know, that breaking that flesh down, getting all that extra stuff. Then he starts to clean you up and, you know, remove all the debris. You know, this is the part where the renewing of the mind starts to happen. You know, he starts to wash us with the word and transforming us by the mind. And then he starts to separate us, because as your mind separates, then your circumstances in your circle starts to separate.
Yes,
you know?
I'm preaching now, yeah.
Well, all of that, I was like, the process is the exact same, you know, but people are willing to stick with the process when they realize that I'm going to get a diamond at the end.
Hey, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing? Thank you as always for tuning into another awesome, amazing podcast episode. These nine seasons, can you believe it? 9 seasons, 20 episodes a season. I am grateful. When I started this podcast back in October of 2019, I definitely had no idea that I would be here 9 years later. I was just giving God my yes. Wasn't sure what I was doing, but here we are. So thank you so much for joining today. Today we are in for a treat. We are truly in for a treat. We have an awesome, amazing, phenomenal featured guest. Today's featured guest is the visionary CEO and program director of Rescue Her 33. She is a 17-year victim and survivor of domestic violence. Please welcome my friend and sister in Christ, Ashley Green.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Thank you again so much for coming on, for taking the time to come on. I definitely appreciate it.
No worries. It's totally an honor for me on my end.
Definitely. And what are some of the things you've been up to recently?
Oh, so it's been going good. my book should be out sometime next month. It's telling about my life and,
Mhm.
how I survived with my children and how I've overcome and, me wanting to help women and children along the way
Mhm.
survive and, be able to tell their story and give their testimonies and help them further on.
Wow, that's awesome. What's the title of the book?
So the book is called Rescue Her 33, The Year
Mhm.
I Survived.
Wow, I love that. That's great. Where will it be available for purchase?
So I'll be doing a book release once the book is set in stone, and then I'll also be um, putting the book on Amazon and
Mhm.
try to see if I can hit them in some stores.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that. That's so good. Kevin Hart once said that, each day, with each day we live, we're adding to a chapter in the book of our lives. And he posed a question. He was like, what are we doing with our chapters when God calls us home at the end of our book? What are people going to see? What are we going to read about? So I believe it's important that we tap into whether it's a book or whatever it is God has placed in us.
I'll give a little bit of insight on the book. So the book does speak about, my life story of being by, you know, I went through, my children went through as far as trauma, but it also speaks about where it didn't start. I in a home with my mother for 14 years of my life, where she was mentally ill. And so I dealt with so much trauma just within the home from my mother. Going further into my life, I lost my father. My father committed suicide
Hmm.
back in 2014. So dealing with the loss of a father, I, I didn't know a bit of red flags. I didn't know how to really be loved by. So I got with my ex-husband.
Uh, I'm sorry, your audio is going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've had that before or what has happened.
Okay. How does it sound now?
Yeah, I can hear you more clear now.
Okay. Okay. So
Not
what part did you not hear?
Sorry about that. Right before you had mentioned your about your dad.
Yes, so father passed away in 2014, but I was already married. There was just some things, in life before then where I didn't get the blueprint of what a man should be like and what, how you're supposed to be treated. My father dealt with alcoholism and I'm sure mental illness as well. And so just not having a village of men surrounding me with the love that I deserve, I allowed a lot of red flags, with my children's father to take me down a journey for 17 years.
Hmm.
And so it just speaks about, yes, I went through the domestic violence, but the trauma just did not start there. And we don't realize trauma, it creates patterns from our childhood into our adulthood. And how do we unlearn those? And then we have children, and then we are manifesting those traumas into our children. How do our children unlearn those? And these are children that we're raising into the next season of, life. So it talks about that, and it talks about rescuing our generation and, rescuing our women and our children, and even rescuing our men. Umbrella under Rescue Her is Rescue Terry Foundation in honors of my father, but it
Hmm.
helps men as well that deal with domestic violence that they're unable to speak about, because in society they always tell men to suck it up,
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
man. And in reality, they go through things as well. So yes, that's umbrellaed under as well. So it's great, it's amazing, and it's coming along.
Wow. Definitely. Congrats on that. And I believe something you said is so important that it's important, especially for your kids, to not have to deal with the same thing.
I'm
So
losing you.
Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you now.
Okay. Wonder if it's your phone. Um,
No.
ah, I'm gonna.
Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me? We're gonna take a pause and try to come back. Right. And we will resume.
Okay. All right. I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. I don't know what happened, but you did say one of the things that I spoke about, and then that's all I heard.
Okay, yes, I was talking about how you want to kind of break the cycle so your kids wouldn't have to face the same thing. And I believe inner healing is so important. Are you there? Sorry, you were going in and out.
That's okay. You said my children breaking the cycle.
Yeah, and I believe inner healing is so important. That's one thing my wife teaches on is inner healing, and sometimes without us realizing it, things have become attached to us from our past or from our parents or their parents, and it's important to be able to identify it and then to be able to break those cycles, especially so our kids and grandkids won't have to deal with the same thing. So I definitely applaud you.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why I implemented in my organization a 12-step trauma informed program.
Mm.
And it's to help our children, go through the steps of unhealed trauma and unlearning those traumas. And we also do it for our adults as well. So
Mm.
it's here with our
Yeah.
organization if anyone needs it.
That's so awesome because a lot of times kids see things or face things, but a lot of times they're looked over because for the
Yep.
simple fact that they're kids, but they experience trauma, they have hidden hurt as well, so they need healing just like the adults do.
Yes, yes. I am a witness to that. My son, who is 19 years old now, I experienced the most domestic violence that I've ever experienced through my pregnancies with my oldest son.
Mm.
And how I found out I was even pregnant with my son, I had to go to the hospital because my nose was broken two places and my ribs were fractured due
Wow.
to the domestic violence. And so when I went to the hospital, it was on Mother's Day. So Mother's Day is kind of like
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But I was 18 years old. I already had a 1.5-year-old daughter. And so to hear that, the injuries that I had just endured on top of being an 18-year-old woman, saying that I was 7 weeks pregnant with my son. And I believe this is where the demonic spirits entered into my womb with my child, because as my child got older, I started to notice certain things. I started to notice certain habits, and although he was young, I knew a lot of it had to do with the trauma that he had endured. And so right now I'm on knees every day praying for him, because there's so many things that's not righteous, but I know the background behind it. And so I'm just praying that God just keep his hands on my son, because it's not his fault. He did
Mm.
not deserve it. He didn't understand it. We didn't understand it. I
Yeah.
was young, but it's a journey, and people don't realize domestic violence is not just physical. It's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, financial, sexual. It's so much. I get a lot of women that say, well, he didn't hit me, he just did this, or he just did that. And I'm realizing that it's all the same. It all can make a big impact on
Yeah.
your life down the line. And so it's so
Yeah.
important to set those boundaries and nip it in the bud in the beginning.
Wow. Um, in the beginning, and something you mentioned, I want to unpack. It's interesting because God, and it's so awesome that He specializes in taking what the enemy meant for bad and turning it into good. And
Absolutely.
so it's interesting that you said on the very day that was meant to celebrate motherhood, on Mother's Day you were pregnant, and the memory every year it kind of uh, it produces not a good feeling in you, and of course the enemy, of course that should be a day of celebration and of
Right.
honor, and the enemy has tried to really tarnish that for you. But I just really pray and believe that, from here on out, that with every Mother's Day, instead of the day being tarnished, that can be a day of celebration and a victory and a reminder of all that God has not only brought you through, but all that He's blessed you to pour into your children, and just a celebration of God's faithfulness, His goodness in the midst of all that has happened to you, and just a true testament of God's love, and in the midst of the worst hurt, in the midst of the worst pain, just His love and the joy of you being able to have your children alive and with you, in spite of what the enemy tried. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on that. You said that it's a blessing to have my children. It is most definitely a blessing to have all of my children with me in spite of our circumstances. I deal with women and children that cross my path, that children are in foster care because failure to protect, with the domestic violence.
Mhm.
And some women, I understand them, because do you know how hard it is to love someone, to want to be able to help this person when they're tearing you down, but then you're also trying to protect your children. You don't want to break your family up. You don't want to be another statistic, and etc.
Yeah.
But it's like the minute that domestic violence happened, it's a failure to protect your children. And
Mhm.
so his family called CPS on me. They tried to get me put out of my place so me and my kids could struggle. They showed up at my job, all this stuff to try to tear us down. But when I tell you, God literally held me by my hand and He carried us through. And so this is why I'll always give God the honor and the glory, because although I went through that trial, this testimony is so beautiful to me. I mean, every time I share the story, I still kind of get choked up, because I used to ask God, why me? Why did I
Mhm.
have to go through that? And I'm understanding why me, because I had to go through it to be able to rescue her,
Wow.
rescue that
Yeah.
other woman. And so I didn't come up with that name, Rescue Her. I honestly thought it was corny,
Yeah.
but God woke me
That's
up in the
purpose.
middle of the night one day and He told me, this is what's going to be your organization. This is how we're going to do it. I honestly thought that I was supposed to open up a teenager's home for pregnant teens.
Hmm.
And I was a teen mother. I got pregnant at 15 and had my oldest at 16. And so that's where I thought my walk of life would be.
Mhm.
And God literally gave me every inch of direction and opened this path to where I'm at today. And
Wow.
it's because of my obedience, and pushing through every trial that hit me, because they were coming left and right, and it was rough.
Wow. That's, yeah. It's sad when those who are supposed to be like, you know, one day it's like, they did that with Jesus. One day they're persecuting him, the next day,
Yes.
Hosanna, Hosanna. Like, make up
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Wow. That is, wow. Yeah, you are definitely a living testament. And you are a 17-year victim and survivor of domestic violence, truly an overcomer who's overcome some of the worst battles. How has your journey been?
So the journey has been a roller coaster, because although I'm still out here and I'm showing my face and I'm helping these women, and I'm doing what God is calling me to do, I still struggle. I still struggle with, the internal. I still struggle with the emotions. I still struggle with, God, am I worthy enough to be married again, or worthy enough to um be in a relationship or loved or cared for. It's definitely a roller coaster, and sometimes I don't even wish it on nobody. I just say, God, I don't want to do this no more, because I'm still so hurt internal, and then trying to still push myself to be there for the next person is not always easy. But because I am a woman of God, and I know that this is something that I have to do. I just, pray and worship and
Mhm.
read my Bible and do what I need to do. But it's not easy.
Yeah. There's something I call the Superman effect. You know, Superman is known for going out and saving people, and he has this red cape. And I believe that while he was out saving people, he was internally bleeding, and he
Absolutely.
used his cape to cover up his blood while he's helping everyone else plug up their leaks. His own leak was, bleeding, and so in a sense, it's become part of his identity. What has once probably was or supposed to be a symbol of shame
Yeah.
is now part of this hero symbol that everyone knows of today. And so, likewise, the things you've had to endure and go through, I believe it will allow you to be able to carry that scarlet thread as a symbol of hope, for others.
I definitely appreciate that. Um, how Rescue Her is ran is based off of my true story. So everything that is implemented in Rescue Her is because I went through it and I want to be able to help other women. And when I
Mhm.
say that, many that know domestic violence, it's very risky to escape. It's hard to escape, and
Mhm.
you have to really have a strategic exit plan to stay out of the domestic violence. And
Yeah.
so a lot of us women, we have children with our abusers. And so childcare was very difficult for me to the point where I was working full time. I was trying to go back to school. And it was very hard because my ex husband was very inconsistent. He wasn't helpful, and I was the breadwinner. And so I had to take my oldest daughter out of public school and put her into homeschool just to be able to take care of her younger siblings. You know how
Wow.
unfair that was, and it hurt me so bad for her to be able to have to step up and be an adult when this wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she was willing and she was wanting, and I was grateful for her because even through the midst of my storm, my daughter was still there and she helped me get through it. And she graduated valedictorian from her
Wow.
school, and she was able to say her class speech, and she graduated with honor roll, and we were just so grateful. But
Yeah.
childcare was one of the things that I really wanted to implement as a 24-hour thing. Rescue Her is a 24-hour organization. There's no 9 to 5. There's no off on the holidays. We want to make sure that any woman that is fleeing out of a situation, that we are there 24/7. So
Yeah. That's awesome.
transportation, most of these women don't have transportation. We want to be able to provide that service for them to escape with the assistance of police.
Hmm.
Hotel vouchers, being able to put these women in a safe haven until we can figure out their next move. Just not throw them in there and leave them. You
Yeah.
know, um, so many services that I offer: domestic violence counseling and advocacy, parenting classes, drug and alcohol, basic life skills, the trauma informed. Many, many that I deal with that we want to be able to say, hey, we are here to help and get you to your next level.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. That's great. I was wondering when you were going through it, did you recognize it as domestic violence?
So, in the Black community, we all know that what goes on in the house stays in the house. And I was always taught a man is going to be a man. Well, here's the trick part. So I was a runaway. I ran away from my family at the age of a day before my birthday. So I'm gonna say 16, but it was 15. I ran away so from the age of 15 to 18, and
Hmm.
so I was with his family. And while I was with his family, there was nothing but dysfunction. I thought it was normal, and I thought this was the life that I wanted to live because it was more freedom where
Yeah.
I was at. And so I had got accustomed to it. So I've watched his sister's spouses beat on them. I've watched, family members take more than what they should have taken,
Hmm.
and then here I was doing the same thing, not realizing that this is not normal. This is not
Yeah.
right. And so when I had my fourth child,
Hmm.
I was about 24 years old. I started realizing something's not right. And again, I I still dealt with it because again, it was my normal, it was my life. I didn't have
Mhm.
nobody. It was almost like I had to stay in it. But then as years started going by, I realized that he married me for the wrong reasons. He kept shooting babies in for the wrong reasons, and I took hard losses because of that. It made it harder for my exit to go.
Yeah.
And I want to say 2007, 2018. I had all my children by this point, and I was laying in bed, and I realized something has to end. Like this has to end. And I just remember God telling me that He's getting ready to position me, and I just have to be open and close my mouth because I'm one of them that will kind of pop back, um, and to create my exit plan.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. So I knew what was going to be the hard parts was the child care, continue working, my transportation, hiding important documents and whatnot. And so that's what I
Yeah.
did. But it took me from 2018. So it took me like a year and a half to create that exit plan and actually flee and never look back.
Wow.
So we do offer that service with Rescue Her too, where we help create the exit plans.
Wow, that's so good. I was wondering, why do you feel people stay in toxic relationships? It's almost like swimming in the lake and then all of a sudden seeing this green stuff coming from the sewer instead of getting out, they're staying in it. Do you feel it's because of the fear, a mixture of the fear of the unknown as well as they've become comfortable where they're at?
Absolutely. I mean, just off top with women being nurturers from, we always feel sorry and want to make things work and,
Mhm.
give chance after chance after chance. And so it's harder for us to just up and leave because we're always thinking that these people are going to change. But
Mhm.
in my experience, what I've just been seeing, just being in this whole DV organizations, a
Mhm.
lot of these women get out with lack of resources, with lack of help. And then they end
Mhm.
up having to go back. And what's been happening is a lot of these men, they have turned their masculinity into like a slavery for women. And what I mean by that is a lot of them want their women to stay home and not work. I
Mhm.
sometimes, and that's another conversation. I so disagree with that. If that woman have independency, allow that woman to still have her independency because a lot of women lack that now. And then, so that's one of the things. Uh, he has positioned himself to be the provider, to be, the protector, but
Mhm.
he's protecting her from the outside. So she's at home, she's with kids, she's not knowing how to
Yeah.
operate a bank account, and so it's almost like it's more easier for her to stay than leave because she lacks
Yeah.
resources and help.
Wow.
And because they have so much control over everything, a lot of these women say, well, he has the job, he has the car, and he that's the first thing that the judge is going to look at. How can you care for your child? They have most of it already. So
Yeah.
it's more harder for the woman to leave because of the fear of not having the help or having to go back to the abuser. And now she's naked to her her strategic plan, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And of course, dealing with that controlling spirit. That's yeah, that's not a good,
Yes.
having to deal with that. Wow.
Yes, and this is why it's so important. And I think because we find it to be normal, we really, really need to tackle on what the red flags are. Because if
Yeah.
we can really tackle the red flags in the beginning, really understand how bad they can be, down the line,
Hmm.
it would definitely help to cause, I mean, the percentage of domestic violence. But
Yeah.
here's the thing with this too, Brian. I don't want to just shine down the men. A lot of the men in our world, or in our society, especially in the poverty communities, they didn't
Mhm.
have their fathers. They didn't have their uncles. They didn't have their grandparents. They didn't have a lot of um the tools to be a man and know who a man really is. You know,
Mhm.
and then a lot of times too, men are always taught to be strong. A little
Yeah,
girl fall
yeah,
in the park, a guy fall, a little boy fall in the park. Who they're gonna run to first?
yeah,
The
yeah,
little girl. And they're gonna
yeah,
tell him to be, you know, a man and suck it up. He
yeah.
still has pain, you know, and so a lot of these men have this unhealed trauma, deep rooted issues that they've never been able to untangle. And then we know when you're not a godly man, you don't know the proper tools to get out of the situations that you're in because you're not worshiping, you're not praying, you're not
Yeah,
fasting, you're not going to church or, you know, community and stuff.
yeah,
And so I really think that if we raise our men, whatever age, to be men like kingdom men, I
mhm,
honestly think that we will get those healthy two-parent households, you know, the men honoring these women. And it's
yeah.
going to take time, it's going to take a lot, but I know that that's something that I'm supposed to do as well.
Hmm. Well, I love that. That's great. And I believe on that same token, it's definitely can definitely be tough for men, you know, especially in adulthood. Like all through childhood, you're told, suck it up, you know, get up, boys don't cry. And
Yeah.
then they grow up and then they get in a relationship. And I think for a lot, it's hard to, you know, a lot, you hear a lot of women say men don't um, show their emotions. I don't really feel it's that men don't want to, but they've gotten so accustomed to sucking it up and hiding their true
Yeah.
emotions. It's like,
And then
okay,
even in, you know, our community for a long time, our parents and, you know, they didn't believe in therapy. They
yeah,
thought I was a crazy thing sitting on a white person's table. I know that sound, you know, but
yeah,
sitting on a couch telling our business.
yeah,
And so for a very long time, it took a long time for me to even go to therapy because that was my mindset. Like, I don't want to tell my business to these people. I'd rather
yeah,
just not say nothing at all. In reality, therapy helps. It helps our children, it helps our men, you know, and our women unbottle a lot what's going in. But we have to be honest with ourselves.
yeah,
We have to tell the whole story and not the parts that just look cute. You know what I mean? And so, although, yes, my story is embarrassing to a lot of people because I was, you know, beat up on Facebook Live and I've had my fair share of black eyes and, you know, my forehead glued and all that was embarrassing to me, you know,
mm,
to be able to endure a lot of that and show my face, the ugly face that I had for a very long time. It was embarrassing. But now I'm helping women along the way
mm,
undress all of that shame, you know, because I'm open and honest on my life story. I tell everybody I'm an open book. Anything you want to know, I will tell you because I
yeah.
know it's going to help someone else. But we have to be honest.
That's good. Do you feel? Well, I think of course, the percentage is probably more women, but as far as the men, do you feel there are men who um, deal with domestic violence? What do you feel that percentage is?
So I definitely would want to say that the percentage is about 70%. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because I used to go inside the jails and I used to teach my domestic violence classes in the women and in the males. And there were many of those tough macho men that spoke about the domestic violence that they went through. But not only did they go through the domestic violence with a woman, they dealt with the domestic violence from their mothers, from their fathers, from their grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles and stuff. They went through it before they even started to batter a woman.
Yeah,
So, you know, they didn't wake up one day and just say, "Oh, I'm going to start beating women." It didn't happen like that. You know,
yeah,
and then a lot of women know how to push men's, you know, eagles, and we know the right words, you know, to say. And although that's no excuse, but
mhm,
when there's a weak-minded man, he does not know how to operate and know how to communicate and to know to walk away from, you know, certain things that this woman is trying to do. They don't even know that. So
mhm.
I do say that there's so many men that are battling with domestic violence. They're just too ashamed, you know, to say it because let let a man call the police on a woman and a male officer come out.
Yeah, it won't. Yeah, it won't. Yeah, they'll be like, "What?"
You
Yeah,
crying over this scratch or you doing
yeah,
this, and it's like, yeah, but if the roles were reversed, you know, oh, she got a scratch, somebody got to go in, it's going to be that man, you know.
yeah,
So it, how do we change that as well?
yeah. That dealing with that whole, stereotype that if a man cry, he's weak or called a punk or
Yeah,
I definitely feel that men need a safe space as well.
they do.
Otherwise, they'll just they'll just be silent. You go to family gatherings or family reunions and see the the old uncle in the back room by
Yes,
himself and he's not speaking, and it's like,
yes.
well, so yeah.
Exactly. And I believe that nobody should have to place a muzzle over their mouth, regardless of what it looks like. Like, you advocate for yourself.
Hmm.
But again, with men, I think it's going to take deeper, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do this, because again, a lot of men are not open and honest about what they have really endured. And even for my ex-husband lived in a dysfunctional circle around men. There's no way he was going to be a productive man when he was around the drugs, when he was around, the gangs, when he was around, his father is in prison for the rest of his life, and so he didn't have those men to lean on. And
Hmm.
so, because I was the closest person to him, he took a lot of it out on me, on top of the alcoholism, and on top of, the pill popping, and he went through so much. And so, um I'm not taking up for him or nothing like that, but
Hmm.
as I'm going through my journey, I don't know if this sounds crazy, but I understand. I don't understand why I got beat for 17 years, but I
Yeah.
understand the why you are who you are and how you came out. I understand that part.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Even as you're talking now, it's ministering to me. Definitely want to talk with you more about
Absolutely.
that. Off the air. But yeah, in some ways I could possibly help.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get into that afterwards.
Okay.
Um, how do you feel, or how important do you feel it is for people who are dealing with this to be able to say and speak like words of affirmation over themselves? Words are definitely powerful. And there are those who believe it's you should wait until you see what you want before you start speaking it. But then there's others who like, speaking it is a doorway to it actually happening.
Absolutely. Affirmation is very much it's really, really important. But see, I think that again, we have to touch on understanding that um words mean a lot. And like we know, life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what we speak over ourselves is what we're going to internalize, and this is what we're going to manifest. But honestly, a woman that is just going through her mental, I mean, just at her widow's peak, in her mental battle, it is so hard for her to speak life into herself, to speak that affirmation into herself. And then also trusting. A lot of times when women go through betrayal, when we go through trust, and not having that community or that village or whatnot, it's harder for our healing to happen, and so really, really, and I'm me personally, that I always go spiritual. It would always be a spiritual thing for me, because that is how I overcame a lot of my things. I literally was on hands and knees praying, praying, asking God. I wish I could take a picture on how soaked my pillow was many nights, and praying and asking God, this is not what I deserve. This is not how I want to end my life,
Mhm.
and so. it took a lot, but that many years I didn't give myself affirmation. Many years I still have trust issues with, different people around me and community and whatnot, even with me being rescued. You know what I mean? So I just really say take it one day at a time. Like literally take it one day at a time and call on that person that you really, really can trust, even if it's just that person, and then work your way up. Therapy is always important.
Yeah.
Being around kingdom people always important.
Yeah.
But speaking life over yourself can definitely be hard, but it's worth it. And I encourage everybody to do it.
Yeah.
And then also allowing yourself to grieve, allowing yourself to like we're in a series now, at church, allowing that process to happen. Because if I don't grieve my anger, I'm going to be walking around like an angry bird.
Wow.
It's going to be so embottled in, and I'm going to lash out on other people.
Hmm. Wow, that's true. And some slipped my mind. I'm sorry.
Uh-uh.
Um, no, you're good. It'll come back. Um, yeah, and it's so important. As you were just saying, I just wanted to touch again on the importance of words. So I'm sure you may have heard about this. So they did a test, and they took two glasses of water and put them in separate rooms. And over one glass, they spoke a bunch of negative words over it. Over the course of a week, and the water in that glass became real dark and gloomy. And
Mm,
then for the other glass, they spoke a bunch of positive words, and that over the course of a week, that water became crystal clear. So if you imagine, if our words have that much power
yes,
over a glass of water, imagine how much power they have over our bodies and over our
absolutely.
lives in general.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I did not know about that, so now I'm going to have to go look that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and internalizing and what you're going through. Another thing too, people don't understand that. I mean, we get in our lonely season, we get in our depression season, and then we kind of just be like, oh well, we're gonna, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, not realizing that is pushing your healing further, down the line. And I'm
Mm.
guilty, very much so guilty of it,
Yeah.
but really taking that time for yourself, not opening yourself to other people because you're still wounded. And I've been out of my DV for almost 6 years. I still have wounds of my body,
Mm.
not physical wounds, but internal wounds, that manifest on other people. And so this is why it's a everyday process. Like domestic violence trauma does not go away. It I want to say it's almost there forever, but how do you overcome it? Like how do you heal it? And again, it's speaking that positivity in yourself, and just knowing that you're going to have some good days, some bad days, but you can't let them bad days outweigh your good days. You have
Yeah.
to continue
Yeah.
to go forward, and don't go back to what caused the harm.
Yeah.
It took me 17 years to get out of it. You think
Mm.
I'm gonna go back to
Yeah.
that?
No.
Can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. And community is definitely important. There's story back when 9/11 happened and the World Trade Centers got bombed, and there were these two firefighters trapped underneath all this rubble for about a week, and
Wow.
they were rescued. And the interviewer asked them how they made it, and they say when one of them started to feel down and start to give up, the other
Wow.
one would be like, "No, we got this, we can make it." And then when that person started to feel down, the other one be like, "We could do it." And so they
Absolutely.
literally volleyed encouragement from one to another, and so that's also important. It's like on the if you've ever watched the Animal Planet, the predator only goes after the one who's disconnected from
Absolutely.
the group.
Yep.
So connection and community is extremely important.
Yeah, definitely important. And community have to do their part as well, as when someone confide in you, with being consistent and like you said, when one fall, you lean on the other and vice versa, you can't. I think this is where a lot of us DV survivors, we tell our business, to a certain person, And then after that, we got somebody else coming to us, so it's like, I confide in you, and then here you go telling my business, so
Yeah.
it makes it hard for others to open up. And so really just being that safe space. I mean, of course, if you're mandated, and they say something, by all
Yeah.
means, to protect them, but really being consistent and really be, helping that person. And then when they're not having a good day and they just want their space, allowing that space, but don't just leave forever, come back and
Yeah.
check on that person. So,
Exactly.
so yes, but I am finding out in my own journey that community is super, super important.
Definitely. And I'd like to share for those watching the and listening the National Domestic Violence Hotline number. That number is 800-799-7233. Again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 800-799-7233. How can people reach out to Rescue Her 33, whether they need help or want to support it?
Yes, so support is always great. We do have a website, and that website is www.rescueher33.org. If anyone needs to give me a call, and you can reach me at 951-347-9217. And again, that number is available 24 hours. And also, I have a office space here in San Bernardino. The address is 320 Northeast Street, and that's Suite 209. And you would have to come on appointment because I'm not always here. So definitely give me a call and set up an appointment. And then, like I said, we also have resources that will be able to help our women, children, and our men. I do want to speak on something very small, not small, but it's also important too. Is teen domestic violence. I was a teen of dealing with domestic violence. And so we want to also make sure we're protecting our babies and really talking to our babies as well. And we do provide services for our teens too. So definitely can be contacted through that website. And oh, also my email, if you want to send me over an email, my email is Ashley at rescueher33.org. I check my emails all the time. And so if anyone has questions, if anyone need resources, I definitely have a resource list that will be able to, go out and help you further on what I can't provide.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You definitely have an awesome team. And major congrats on getting
Thank you.
Miss Betty Avery on your
Yes.
on the team.
Yes, I love Miss Betty. We're building, and so we're also looking for volunteers. We're also looking for people that want to come in and show their talents and their treasures. I'm not closed to help, and so if people want to come out and help, I have different projects that need help on. So please feel free to reach out to me.
Amen. Wow, it's been amazing having you on. A diamond is simply a piece of coal that did well under pressure, and because of your perseverance, determination, and the Spirit of God in you, you and all that you faced, you have been tried, definitely tried by the fire, and now
Yes,
you are using your testimony, your story to reach others. So I truly applaud you. You're a true
thank you.
testament that broken crowns do still color.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am definitely honored and I appreciate it. And like I said, when that book come out, I really, really ask that everyone go out and support. It's very interesting. So definitely grab the book. And I just thank you for all the support, the love. You can also go follow me on social media. I have my business page, Rescue Her 33, and different upcoming events that I'll be happening will, be posted on there. And, just to say hi, I like to meet
Yeah.
new people and, see new faces and whatnot. So, yeah, it's totally an honor.
Wow, awesome. Well, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Well, everyone, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you've been greatly blessed. Definitely feel free to not only like, comment, and subscribe, but definitely share. Sometimes, like how it is when you watch a movie, sometimes you have to watch it a second time. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. And Again, thank you for rocking and rolling with me these 9 seasons. I'm truly grateful to God for this platform. And as always, this is BDP, Brian David Porter, still living in purpose, on purpose, intentionally. Until next time, you guys be blessed.
All right. Bye, you guys.